We've all seen it, the epic movie sword fight, that heroic last stand, the clash of steel that decides the fate of entire kingdoms. It's powerful, it's dramatic, and it's pretty much burned into our cultural DNA. And it's a beautiful lie. That fantasy of sword fighting, it's why most people get it so wrong. They see people with swords and think of fantasy role-playing, foam weapons, elaborate costumes, and they call it LARPing. But what if I told you that the real thing, a genuine and deadly martial art, has been hiding in plain sight this whole time? This isn't a game, this is a martial discipline, brought back to life from the writings of the old masters themselves. This is HEMA. HEMA stands for Historical European Martial Arts, and that first word, historical, is the key to everything. See, unlike many martial arts that have an unbroken line from master to student, the fighting systems of medieval and Renaissance Europe just stopped. The world changed, firearms started to take over on the battlefield, and the formal duel of honour slowly faded. The living person-to-person knowledge, the intricate footwork, the brutal efficiency, it seemed to just vanish. For centuries, what we were left with was a caricature, stage fighting that looked good, but had lost its martial soul. And so you might be thinking, if the masters are all gone, how could we possibly know how they really fought? Well, the answer wasn't passed down in some secret tradition, it was waiting in a library. For hundreds of years, the actual instructions from Europe's greatest fighting masters were preserved in beautifully illustrated, handwritten manuscripts. These aren't just dusty old books, they're incredibly detailed technical manuals.
I don't know what I was doing. Yeah, I'll take that. No more kids. No more. Good.
One of the most famous of the manuals is The Flower of Battle, written around 1409 by an Italian master named Fiore. Fiore was a knight who spent his life honing his craft, and his book is a complete, integrated martial arts system. It covers wrestling, dagger fighting, the longsword, fighting in full plate armour, and even combat on horseback. And he's not the only one. We have a growing library of manuals from masters across Europe, with the German and Italian traditions being particularly well documented, each giving us a window into these fighting styles. So when you see someone practicing HEMA, they aren't just making it up. They are part researcher, part translator, and part athlete, all working together to bring this back. They're taking an image from a 600-year-old page and resurrecting it. This isn't fantasy, it's reconstruction. And so, how does a centuries-old manuscript become a living, breathing martial art again? It happens in sports halls, in university gyms, and as it turns out, on a Friday night in a parish hall in West Sussex, England. This is the home of the White Company, a HEMA club named after a famous 14th century mercenary company feared for its skill and discipline. It's a fitting name because what happens here is all about discipline. The core of their training and the most popular weapon in HEMA is the longsword. Now, forget the ridiculously heavy, clunky blades you see in movies. A real longsword is light, fast, and shockingly versatile. It's an elegant piece of engineering designed for both cutting and thrusting, and every single part of it is a weapon, right down to the pommel. When a class starts, it's not chaotic flailing, it's drills. You see partners working through plays taken directly from the source material, repeating each movement to build that crucial muscle memory. The goal isn't to look heroic, it's to be effective, to control the distance, dominate your opponent's blade, and add a clean, decisive hit. And what about safety? I mean, we are swinging steel swords at each other. The gear has evolved right alongside the art. Modern HEMA practitioners wear reinforced masks that can take a full force thrust, rigid throat protection, padded jackets, and articulated gloves that protect the delicate bones in the hand without sacrificing control. The whole point is to practice a dangerous art in a safe and sustainable way. We're here to interpret the art, not to replicate the casualties. The White Company, the club's name, isn't an accident. It's a nod to one of the most effective and infamous mercenary armies of the 14th century. The original White Company was a free company, a highly organised army for hire, active in Italy in the 1300s. They weren't fighting for a king or a country, but for the highest bidder, among the warring Italian city-states. Initially composed of English and German veterans of the 100 Years' War, the company became most notorious under the leadership of an Englishman named Sir John Hawkwood. Hawkwood, the son of a tanner, who became a knight through skill and battlefield promotion, turned the White Company into one of the most formidable forces in Europe. The name White Company is believed to have come from the gleaming, polished plate armour of its soldiers. Their reputation was built on discipline and tactical innovation. They brought battle-hardened English tactics to Italy, famously fighting as dismounted men-at-arms in tight formations, a stark contrast to the cavalry charges common at the time. But their effectiveness came with a fearsome reputation for brutality and ruthlessness. They were soldiers of fortune in a violent age, and their business was war. So while the modern HEMA club practices a martial art with respect and safety, its historical namesake was a reminder that these skills was once a deadly trade. So who are these modern day warriors deciphering ancient texts and crossing swords in parish halls? Well, they're people from every walk of life. They're history buffs who want to connect with the past in a way that you just can't get from a book. They're athletes looking for brand new challenges. They're martial artists fascinated by the pure logic and efficiency of these systems. Ask anyone in a HEMA club why they do it, and you'll get a dozen different answers. For one person, it's the ultimate intellectual puzzle, a kind of physical archaeology where you're constantly making new discoveries. For another, it's about the community, a shared passion that brings together people from all corners of society, united by love of history and the challenge of mastering a ridiculously cool skill. And for so many, it's about the feeling of holding a piece of history in your hands and learning to use it as it was intended. It's a profound connection to the past, a way of understanding that the people who lived hundreds of years ago weren't that different from us. They had systems, they had science, and they had an art of combat that is just as sophisticated and effective today as it was in the 1400s. So no, this isn't LARPing. It's not a fantasy game. There are no wizards, no elves, and no hit points. There's only the historical record, the steel in your hand, and the opponent in front of you. HEMA is a scholarly pursuit, a demanding physical discipline, and a thriving global community. It's a living, breathing connection to a martial past that was almost lost. It's a lost art, but now found. And if you want to discover this for yourself, there are clubs all over the world. A quick search for HEMA in your area is the first step on an incredible journey. And if you happen to be in West Sussex, well, you know who to find. If you want to see more deep dives into the world of historical combat, make sure you subscribe. Now, go pick up a sword.